All'interno di questa metropoli gigantesca e caotica si trova uno dei più grandi enigmi del passato. Una colonna di ferro. Le centinaia di migliaia di turisti che affollano ogni anno il complesso archeologico di Kuvat ul Islam, alla periferia di Delhi, non conoscono l'importanza di questo manufatto che si trova nel cortile dell'antico tempio. Di questo straordinario manufatto non si sa quasi nulla. Da dove viene? Chi l'ha realizzato? Fino ad oggi nessuno ha potuto dare una risposta certa. Ma c'è un altro mistero. Com'è possibile che la colonna di ferro abbia resistito 16 secoli sotto il sole e la pioggia, rimanendo pressoché intatta, senza essere distrutta dalla ruggine?
The iron pillar seems impossible, but there are many other impossibilities, and they form a world pattern.
Cercheremo di scoprire chi realizzò la colonna e con quali tecniche. Ma resta l'interrogativo. Come mai, in 1600 anni all'aria aperta, non è stata distrutta dalla ruggine?
It's futuristic iron, in my opinion, and futuristic iron wouldn't rust. Rust is decay, and primitive iron would rust. This has been purified. This is iron of the gods. So it's not going to rust. Well, I think the problem is that scientists only look at one piece of the puzzle. If you just look at the pillar, yes, it's an amazing thing, but you're not going to understand it unless you compare it to other similarities elsewhere in the world. And surprisingly, those other similarities fit a pattern.
Siamo andati a Los Angeles, dove vive Doug Yurchey. Yurchey, da circa 30 anni, elabora una teoria secondo la quale, nel mondo, ci sono 13 punti che furono il centro di altrettante culle della civiltà del passato. La mitica Atlantide sarebbe stata collegata con altri 12 centri mondiali, tra cui Stonehenge, l'isola di Pasqua, la piramide di Giza e la colonna di ferro di Delhi. Secondo Yurchey, i nostri antenati erano tecnologicamente molto più avanzati rispetto alla società attuale.
To me, the iron pillar is a futuristic Tesla coil. It's actually drawing electricity right from the earth and sending it out like radio. It has a capital on it exactly like a Tesla coil has a ball. The energy is in nature. It's the power that moves the compass. And this could be concentrated in all these global points, and India was one of those points. I believe the iron pillar wirelessly powered the ancient Vimanas. The ancient Vimanas are flying crafts written in the old accounts of India.
Il termine sanscrito Vimana, nella mitologia indiana, indica un oggetto capace di volare nell'aria, nello spazio o di immergersi sott'acqua. Gli dei sono rappresentati a cavallo di uccelli o di carri alati, il cui uso viene spesso descritto in battaglie epiche tra dei e demoni.
There's no mystery to the Vimanas. These are vehicles that can be built. Anti-gravity is a real thing. The ancients used this, and they didn't just have anti-gravity or lasers, they mastered.
Queste illustrazioni sono i disegni tecnici tratti dal Vimanika Shastra, un libro scritto all'inizio del Novecento da un mistico indiano con lo scopo di riassumere tutte le nozioni relative ai Vimana, i carri degli dei, che aveva ricavato dallo studio degli antichi testi. Che aspetto avevano, secondo la mitologia indiana, i Vimana? E cosa li muoveva? Le descrizioni tecniche spaziano dalla forma dei veicoli volanti ai materiali con cui erano costruiti. Viene anche spiegato come renderli invisibili e come comunicassero tra di loro, come vedere attraverso lo scafo dei nemici e quali armi usare per distruggerli. Se è vero che si tratta di testi scritti migliaia di anni fa, colpisce particolarmente l'accostamento degli armamenti più moderni a quelli più antichi.
I Vimana avevano armi diverse, spade, scimitarre, chakra, tridenti e frecce. Quelle frecce erano potenti come bombe atomiche.
Robert Oppenheimer was the father of the atomic bomb and a student of the ancient books of India, and he knew that what he was doing was only rediscovering what the ancients used and made war with.
Potevano distruggere il mondo.
In the ancient books, there are descriptions of incredible air warfare and weapons and what could only be nuclear explosions. My name is Doug Yurchey, and I've been studying the ancient mysteries for 35 years. I have a very interesting theory involving Atlantis and Nikola Tesla. It's very unique, and it has many answers that many people are looking for. My world grid is a connection between the major ancient mysteries, and they were the cradles of civilization. There are other world grids that weren't cradles of civilization that have many more parts to it. Mine has 13, and I think this is where the human race began, and the iron pillar is a very important part of the system.
Can you explain us what is your theory about the grid?
Well, the ancient world grid is a connection between famous sites like the Great Pyramid, Stonehenge, Easter Island. They're all connected on a global scale. They form a pattern, and these were the cradles of civilization. Humanity came from these centers, and there's a whole new history that we're missing. It's not in our education, and this is sort of what my theory is about. We were the gods. We were our ancestors, and my theory is that we landed here with an advanced technology from outer space, came to Earth, built the cradles of civilization, and these were human cradles of civilization, and that's why I attribute it to humans and not aliens. Yes, I believe in the past they used anti-gravity, powerful lasers. That's how the pyramids were built. These were humans, these weren't aliens. We have to completely change the state of early humans. They weren't primitive. They were very, very advanced. People don't know who Nikola Tesla was. He's been taken out of our education, and that's a big shame. Tesla invented the AC current. Tesla invented radio. Tesla invented television. He invented a way to broadcast electricity wirelessly. This is what the ancients mastered. Tesla almost changed the 20th century. We would not have had the First World War, Second World War, or Depression if Tesla was successful with his power tower in 1900. He would have absolutely changed human civilization. I believe Tesla rediscovered the secret of the pyramids. I believe the ancients used that principle that Tesla rediscovered in the 20th century. The ancients mastered that principle. They had anti-gravity, they had powerful lasers, all on a world grid. Tesla built his first tower in New York, but that was only the first tower. This is what people don't know. This would have wirelessly powered a large section of the world, but you would need another tower, and you would need another tower, Tesla tower, to completely cover the Earth's surface with usable wireless electricity. This is the ancient world grid. Tesla was going to build a modern world grid, and I discovered the same principle was mastered by our ancestors. They could move these great rocks. They could build pyramids, but what they were doing was building power stations, how you could actually get electricity out of the earth. There's an energy that moves a compass needle. And this is natural energy. Tesla discovered how the whole earth can be used for power. We can basically put a pole into the ground and draw electricity right out of the ground. People have not put together Tesla with the ancient mysteries because Tesla has, well, we can't have Tesla technology today. Tesla technology would interfere and disrupt all our media today. Tesla Tower is like a giant magnet. And as you know, we can't put a magnet on our computers. It messes everything up. This was a new system. Tesla would not have been disturbing anything 100 years ago. We can't have Tesla's system, and the governments know this, and that's why he's not a part of our education, because we can't build that tower. It would disrupt all the media that we have today. But the ancients did things the right way. They used power. They mastered these technologies so they could generate this power, distribute the power. And if you notice the ancient mysteries, there are pyramids, and then a giant pyramid, then smaller pyramids. There's Stonehenge and smaller standing stones all around Stonehenge. Zimbabwe, all these other places are grids. There's like a main complex and an order, an organization of these other structures around the main structure. Today, we have the AC current. We have big powerhouses that step the power down and down and down again so we can use it locally. The ancients did the same thing. You could see it in their structures. They had the main complex, and then they had wireless other complexes that distributed the energy so we could use it. So everything would be vibrating, everything would be oscillating, and you have this, people just don't know what wireless electricity is. We got cheated out of this type of technology, and now we can't have it until all our media comes down. We have to throw away our cell phones, throw away our computers to have Tesla technology, and no one is going to do that. But the ancients did things the right way. I know that I know that humans and not aliens were our progenitors, were our creators, because I believe they landed here, advanced humans landed here, built a world grid of power, of electrical power, and distributed it. Now Atlantis blew up. There is no Atlantis. And I think because everything was corrupted, it was destroyed in time. Why did Atlantis get destroyed? So much time passed. You have Eden, you have perfection. But after so much time, there's change. We're humans. We keep producing more humans, but in time they became less and less. If you read Edgar Cayce, he's talking about how we slowly became more material, more fixed to the material world, and eventually wars were created. It went from paradise on earth to hell on earth. And these, if you master technology, you could clone. You could clone, and Edgar Cayce talked about the things. These were soldiers. These were people that they actually made. And this is all our lost technology, all our lost knowledge. Most people have heard about Tesla because of the Tesla coil, and it almost generates more energy than comes in. You plug a Tesla coil in, and through induction, through radiant energy, it lights up all lights in the area. It powers everything in the area. Many appliances have Tesla coils. Now, his giant tower was going to use the entire Earth, the turning Earth, to generate power, magnify, it was called the magnifying transmitter, to broadcast electricity. Now, the funny thing is, Edgar Cayce said maybe the ancients could broadcast electricity. Edgar Cayce never mentioned Nikola Tesla, but he did talk about wireless electricity that the ancients used. And if you look at the structures of the old world, to me, this is a futuristic Tesla system. Because what if Tesla was successful? What would the world look like? It would eventually look like pyramids and obelisks and standing stones, because these would be resonators, and they would wirelessly, like radio, like television, pass on a frequency, and we could tap into that frequency for electrical power, to power vehicles, to power flying crafts, and I think the ancients did that. In India, you have the Vimanas. You have ancient aircraft written in books that are older than the Bible, the Vedas, the Mahabharata. These are books that describe, just like the Bible, describe ancient warfare, high technology with primitive words. These were real flying crafts. These were wars that were recorded. Much later, in simple terms, I believe just like a Tesla coil can light a light without wires, or anything without wires, the New Delhi pillar powered all those legends of Vimanas. To me, it's not a coincidence that you have this rich stories of India, and you have this oddity, this weird thing. Nothing is like the iron pillar, and that to me is a Tesla coil vibrating, using the entire Earth, powering the vehicles. And the weirdest, oddest thing is on the exact opposite side of the Earth as the iron pillar is Easter Island. Easter Island gives off a strong electromagnetic charge. Ships' compasses will turn towards Easter Island. And the New Delhi pillar had to have electricity as an important part of its creation. It is magnetic. It is an electrical phenomena, and it is so odd to have an electrical phenomena in New Delhi and an electrical phenomena on Easter Island. These are on the exact opposite ends of the Earth, like a magnet, like the Earth has a north and south pole. Here are the north and south poles that the ancients used. There's also a language found on Easter Island identical to what's found in the Indus Valley. How can the Indus Valley and Easter Island be connected so many ways? Electrically, the same languages, the statues of Easter Island and ancient statues in India. How can it be connected, the opposite ends of the Earth, if they were primitive? We have birdmen legends on Easter Island, and we have this rich culture of flying Vimanas in India. It's all connected. That's flight connected, all this. And I believe when there was a collapse, when everything collapsed because it became corrupted and it went to war, then you would destroy the power centers. And when you destroy the power centers, it's like the day the Earth stood still. Everything stops. All the Vimanas would crash. Everything would fall. You couldn't generate any more electricity because the system was no more. This stranded Easter Island. They kept on building statue after statue after statue, thinking their receiver was, something was wrong with the receiver. They couldn't believe that the transmitter, the main transmitter out in Atlantis, and in a huge continent that used to exist, they couldn't believe that the transmitter failed, and that's what stranded them. And then they stopped building because they realized the energy, the whole system was down, and this was the fall of Atlantis. And it's simply To me, my theory, it's an energy feedback effect that went back to the source. The source was the main pyramid, possibly, on the big Atlantic continent, which exploded, sank. In the mid-Atlantic ridge, we know that it was above water. We know that there are hills and lakes and beach sand on the bottom of the ocean. That was all above the water at one time. There was Atlantis. And the interesting thing is, I think this was the technology that Tesla tried to give us, Atlantis back again. But you have to be very careful, because that is such powerful technology that it could blow up in your face. And that's what happened to Atlantis. That's why we don't have it, Tesla technology today. Because used the wrong way, it could destroy everything. So we're not going to have Tesla technology until we are so enlightened as a species to use it the right way. But at least we have that potential. I was once pen pals with someone, his name was Arthur Matthews, and I believe he was Tesla's son. I believe he was Tesla's secret son. There's no record of Tesla ever having a son. And I believe Arthur Matthews, and I believe his letters to me. He died in 1986. And he said, we're not going to have a Tesla system until so far in the future that no one would ever hear of Tesla. That's not hundreds, that's thousands of years from now, after we give up our warlike ways, there are no more wars, and we can accept this. And also, we can't have a Tesla system today, incompatible with what we have today. It would destroy television, satellites, like putting a powerful magnet on your computer. So we can't do that. But if everything came down and we would build the Tesla towers the right way, they would be like huge magnets. Tesla's towers ran off of a river. But in hundreds of years of improving that system, they would be pyramids. It wouldn't be a Tesla tower anymore. It would run off the energy of the earth and distribute that power. The exact system that Tesla wanted in the future would look like the ancient world. If we kept improving his tower, you'd have a pyramid. And all the substations of taking that energy, wirelessly distributing it all the way down locally so you could use it. Now, the iron pillar just looks like a Tesla coil. It's not stone. So I'm talking about charged stone, like the crystal properties in stone. But the iron pillar is pure metal. And it's my theory, we can't build that metal today. We can't duplicate it. It's black magnetite. Yes, there's black magnetite found in nature, but that pillar is charged, and if my theory is correct that it powered all the Vimanas, it would be purified by maybe 1,000 years of running electricity through it, powering these vehicles. Yes, we could electrify, even magnetize a pillar like that, but we could never create the purity of that metal. And to me, it was created. That's why it stands alone. It has been purified by thousands of years of powering all the legendary flying craft in their folklore. Now, why did Tesla fail? Why did we not have this wireless technology in the 20th century? It was his supreme achievement. All his inventions led up to this giant tower in New York. Why did it fail? The story is that J.P. Morgan, richest man in the world, backed Tesla and pulled his funds when he found out that this was free energy, that he couldn't make a profit out of it. That's not the story that I learned through Arthur Matthews, who knew Tesla. The story is, Tesla himself dismantled it. Tesla was very rich. Tesla has the most important patents. He wisely invested Westinghouse's money. One other thing in the ancient accounts of India is a force field. I read of a force field weapon. Now, if you could have a force field and move it, you would literally flatten everything. This is described in the ancient books of India. What could only be nuclear detonations, wars of the gods, all done from the air. And this is a part of our lost technology that was everywhere. We once had paradise, and then everything became corrupt. What happened when everything collapsed? All of those grid points were isolated, and they developed different styles, different customs. It was all connected, and yet it became different, and they eventually went to war, and it was built back up again. They couldn't move in stone anymore. They couldn't generate that power, so they moved earth, great earth blocks. Now the iron pillar actually could draw the energy right out of the earth, like a Tesla coil, and transmit it. It looks like a Tesla coil. The energy is in nature. It's the power that moves the compass. And this could be concentrated in all these global points, and India was one of those points. The iron pillar was a collector of energy, just like these other antennas that worked through natural energy, drawing power right out of the ground. The earth is turning. The earth is like a giant conductor of electricity. Tesla realized this, and he built his power towers on these grids. Well, to me, the ancients mastered these grids. The Indian pillar is such an amazing power source, and obvious Tesla coil in the land of Vimanas. And to me, that's not a coincidence. This is a futuristic civilization that collapsed, and it's all recorded in the ancient books. Exactly on the opposite end of the earth from the iron pillar is Easter Island. And they are both electromagnetic phenomena. Even the same language was found on Easter Island and the Indus Valley. Easter Island is 2,300 miles out into the ocean. It's 3 volcanoes. There should not even be a civilization there. There are these giant statues, and there are giant statues in India, all in ruin, all destroyed. And there's also this electromagnetic phenomena. Ships' compasses point to Easter Island. There are statues completely circling the island, and I think a residue of that energy collectively affects the compass. And you have what better pole than India, than that iron pillar? It is a pole, it is a pillar, and a magnetic one. Look what's on the opposite end of the earth. Well, the interesting thing about the world grid is that's where humanity came from. These are 13 cradles of civilization, perfectly positioned in a world pattern, which means it was all organized, it was all one, it was all united. And to me, this was Atlantis. The main components of the grid is the Great Pyramid, Easter Island, Stonehenge. There are other lesser-known ones like Zimbabwe, Tassili. The same similarities, the same building techniques, the same legends of flight, things that can't be built today in stone are at most of these grid points. That iron pillar may not be the original iron pillar, but the location is special. The location could be 60,000 years old, like the Great Pyramid. But we have the destruction of Atlantis at 12,000 years ago. So there could be, and this system was rebuilt and rebuilt. So they may have placed another pole in New Delhi to replace the original one. But I know that that location is special and is as old as Easter Island, as the Great Pyramid, and Stonehenge. Well, I think the problem is that scientists only look at one piece of the puzzle. If you just look at the pillar, yes, it's an amazing thing, but you're not going to understand it unless you compare it to other similarities elsewhere in the world. And surprisingly, those other similarities fit a pattern. on a global scale. History is backwards. There was not evolution, there was devolution. There was not progress. It started great, it collapsed, humanity recycled many times, but it never came back to what it was before. It's called retrograde technology. When the empires fell, they were rebuilt. This world system was rebuilt, but not as great as it was before. We know this because of they couldn't build in stone anymore, and they went to earth. There's incredible mound builders because they couldn't build in stone. They had to move only a lighter material. You'll see that the later pyramids, like in the Americas, have a different shape to them than the Egyptian pyramids. The Americans are different because the whole world frequency was different. You needed a different lens different shape lens to focus that power. So this is going backwards in time. The Incas were greater than the Mayas, and the Incas came before. They were on the top of the Andes Mountains building impossible things. We can't live there today. They farmed on top of the Andes Mountains. We didn't discover some of these ancient sites until we flew over them. How did they get up there? And this was a society before the Mayas that were greater than the Mayas. I think they had greater vehicles. They had the fantastic flying vimanas, and the Mayas had little planes. They had wings. This is going backwards in time. Nazca lines, they weren't that very advanced, and they were done from the air because the Nazca lines are one continuous motion, like they were lasered from the air. This was not as advanced as we were earlier. The Incas had no hieroglyphs, and the Mayas had incredible hieroglyphs. They were so advanced they didn't have the need to write or speak. They were using portions of the mind that we don't use today. And here's a fact: Cro-Magnon has a larger brain than modern man. That's a fact. It makes no sense. And that accounts for these gods. This was the one time in humanity where we were gods. We had great powers of the mind. We could move objects. We were psychic. We didn't need to speak. And we've lost all that. And yet we still have the potential of that. There are psychics today that are throwbacks to that age where we all used that system. But everything collapsed. You know, there's a biblical story of Babel where everyone understood each other, and then that collapsed. That could have been a communicative pyramid where everybody was tapped into. Then when that system collapsed, no one could understand each other. So history went backwards because we see it in stone. To me, the grid were power stations, and we have famous ones like the Great Pyramid, Stonehenge, Easter Island. These were cradles of civilization. There was Zimbabwe, Tassili, Alice Springs in Australia, Brazil in 2002. They discovered grids within grids. Who thought that ancient Amazons could build like that? You have in Russia building of stones that look like bomb shelters. Who knew that Russians could build in ancient Russians could build in stones, and the ancient Africans in Zimbabwe. We found in the Sea of Japan, Yonaguni. This all fits every continent, a pattern, and with very similar. Yes, the world grid to me is an energy system, and the Great Pyramid, Stonehenge, Easter Island have been long thought to be mysteries, and now because of Tesla, we know that this could be centers where energy was stored, just like what Tesla wanted to do, the ancients did with giant stones, not towers. They vibrated, they carried an electrical signal, a frequency. The Mayas had a legend of a ladder connecting all the individual Copan and Uxmal and Tulum. All these centers of Mayan civilizations aren't connected by roads. See, they were connected because the vehicles went there, and this ladder in the sky was the electrical network that collapsed. And you see in Mayan ruins, row after row of these columns Well, these are tuning forks. These are power stations that vibrated and sent a signal. So what connected all the systems was this energy that actually went through the ground and created a field of energy between the ground and the ionosphere. The ground, and this is because of Tesla, I know this, that the ground is negatively charged, the ionosphere is positively charged. So with this system, you could have power on the top of Mount Everest, on the bottom of the ocean, once the system is in place. But if it collapses, if you go to war, that's it. The power is no more. And we've lost that great knowledge. In my opinion, the 13 grid points were connected by this wireless energy. And this was Stonehenge, this was Easter Island, this was the Great Pyramid, this was the Iron Pole in New Delhi. This forms a world pattern. It collapsed, and humanity has been cycling downward ever since. Okay, cool. Well, this is my world grid, and you can see the pattern. Look at these colored spots, and you can see the pattern. This proves Darwin wrong. This proves evolution wrong, because how can we have been created at each one of these points at the same time? Here's Easter Island. Here's the exact opposite end of the earth, the Iron Pillar. And there's so many similarities between all of these places. I did not know about Yonaguni, or in Brazil, or in Canada when I first came up with the map. I knew of the obvious ones, but I learned of the Pillar, I've learned of Zimbabwe, I've learned what's in Australia. There are evidence of nuclear blasts everywhere, which is described in the ancient books of India. Here's a Canadian Indian that, and it's an image of an Indian in the exact spot that fits my ancient grid. The Incas, the Tassili cave paintings. This is all a phenomena. This was all connected. The human race came from these points, and when it collapsed, we were stranded in each one of these points, and instead of controlling the weather, we were the victim of the weather. So when I see the brown race, the black race, this shows me that humanity was stranded in each one of these areas, and their skin color actually changed because they were stuck in, here's the black race, in hot, torrid South Africa. Ancient Druids in England, they were very light-skinned because they have cold weather. But this wonderful grid shows the cradles of civilization. It shows that we're all one people, and I believe in the future we'll be one people again. We're not animals, we're fallen gods. Well, here you have pyramids, mounds, Stonehenge, the standing stones. Well, just like the AC power will have a big power station and send it through wires to a smaller station, step down the power again to even a smaller station. This is how we use electricity. But you see the same thing of a centrally located main structure and then smaller ones with the mounds, with pyramids, with standing stones like Stonehenge. And this was all an energy distribution system. And the answer is where the stones are. We can read this. We know that these were utility poles. Like we have a utility pole, they had a great statue. It was just more artistic. They had great architecture, but what it wasn't a god, wasn't a statue, an idol to a god. It was a utility pole, like we have a power pole today, only a better one, a wireless one. And if Tesla had succeeded, in the future we would be building pyramids, we would be building grids, because the power comes out of every square foot of ground. So you would put a pole, you would build in grid after grid after grid. And we have grids in ancient Brazil, we have grids in ancient Zimbabwe, and the Great Pyramid and Stonehenge, because there are smaller standing stones that took the energy and distributed it, and suddenly everything was vibrating in sync with this power. It powered crafts,
Okay.